What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Coffee Break on this Monday. If you're here in the Mile High City, I'm sorry that there's still snow when there should be sunshine, but the sunshine today is going to be DMAC is back with us. How are you, my friend? How was your trip? We want to hear all about it.
Well, I was out in Northern California for a week, and it was pretty cold out there. Excuse me, there wasn't any snow, but it was not warm. That's
Okay.
for sure. I mean, we were in sweatshirts and pants and double pants and hats and gloves, and I mean, it was something. And
That's so
torrential
fun.
rains. Well, they have had some crazy weather, cold temperatures and horrible wind and rain, and just it's been brutal out there. But that being said, you can still get outside and do certain things
Mhm.
at certain times. And my son plays college baseball out there, and one of the things they have going for them is a lot of artificial turf fields. And as great as it is to play on grass, I think Colorado high school and colleges would do so much better, Rachel, if they were able to figure out how to turf up some fields. And
Uh-huh.
it would just make playing in the springtime just so much more accessible and easier to happen. I know all sorts of things around here get canceled, and sometimes it's better in Colorado to play in January and February than it is March. So I
True.
saw the beauty of artificial turf fields out there in Northern California where it rains quite a bit. But that was my trip. It had a good time. Great to see my son. Love him. Love his girlfriend. And had dinner with her parents again. They were fantastic hosts. So we have met the parents. I did not ask if they milked the cat's nipples, but I did not do that. But we have made a bond in Northern California. And if you need to know anything, Rachel, about the greater San Jose or Saratoga area, including Los Gatos, I'm your guy.
Is that Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers?
Mmm.
I
The
can't
nipples with the
remember.
cat? God, that's a good question. It
I
might
don't
be.
remember which one it is.
I
Both
think. I
great
think.
funny
I
movies.
think. I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? I think that's meet the parents. I think. I think you're right, though. I think the parents meeting the parents
Is
is
Meet
meet
the
the
Fockers.
Fockers.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. 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 You're right on that.
Also, everyone should be so proud of me because I just knew a movie quote and that never happened. So
I
we're a
know.
great start on the Monday.
Good for you. Good for
Meet the
you.
parents. Oh
What did I,
yeah.
Rachel? What did I miss? What did I miss last week? What was the biggest things I missed?
Wait, Clint just said, "Is she in the circle of trust?" You're
She absolutely she's in the circle of trust. I love my son's girlfriend. She is wonderful, and her
cool.
parents are fantastic, and just there's no animosity whatsoever. It's kumbaya, man. It's Northern California kumbaya.
Okay, well, I love it. Now, what did you miss while we were here? Honestly, not a lot. Probably just the typical roller coaster of being an Avalanche and Nuggets fan. You know, I feel like we're all kind of on this ride until we get to the playoffs, and hopefully it's just smooth sailing until then. Otherwise, D-Mac, you honestly, you didn't miss a whole lot. So you picked a good week to take a vacation, but we obviously come back to the big kind of news. Oh, the one thing you did miss is obviously KJ Hamler's going to be out 4 to 6 months. That
Yeah,
was
how
a
about
big.
that? I feel awful for him.
I know.
He's dealt with so many injury issues. He's such an important player for the team,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very open about his mental health issues. And
Yep.
so, listen, man, I think with a lot of athletes, and it's great if you make a lot of money, obviously, but I think mental health concerns are serious. I
Yes.
take them seriously. I think young people go through difficult times that are just magnified because they know they have a short period of their life to be
Yeah.
able to take care of their physical abilities. Once you get older and you do the stuff we're doing, frankly, we could do this forever as long as somebody's wanting us to, I suppose. But as an athlete, you really do have just such a short period of time. So I feel bad for KJ Hamler. I really do. And I heard he hurt himself training, so that's just trying to get better. That's just,
Mm-hmm.
doing, it's not something foolish. It's something to try to help himself. So I
Yep.
root for KJ Hamler. I like KJ Hamler. I think he's an incredibly important player to the team. And I got you back, KJ, and I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, me too. The other one is the stadium talk, which I feel
Yeah.
like it's kind of been around forever, but obviously with them sending out the survey to season ticket holders, that sparked a huge conversation of, okay, well, what's actually going to happen? And James Merla had an actually pretty interesting piece about how it's kind of pointless to send out these surveys because they're going to do what they're going to do regardless of what the surveys say. So it's a good piece over at denversports.com. But the other part is, and I see Clint's comment down there, and he said the legitimacy of Jerry Jeudy trade. And yeah, Sean Payton comes out over the weekend and is like, I see and hear and read everything, and we're not interested in trading Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. But Mike Cliffs ends up putting out on his tweet how, we reported this 10 days ago, but that's because they want a second round for Cortland Sutton and a first round for Jerry Jeudy. So I'm like, well, that kind of contradicts itself. If you're not willing to trade him, you're not willing to trade him no matter what. So are you just not willing to trade him for the price that you're getting at the moment?
Well, I'd love to go back to the stadium issue and James' article. I read that. Well, I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes.
I wrote a piece for denversports.com that's coming out hopefully a little bit later today. And my take on it is that you have to trade Jerry Jeudy now. Yeah, I know. And I go through what it's all about, and clearly they are deflecting because they're not getting the price that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they can trade Cortland Sutton, Rachel. I don't think that's a possibility. I think the value on Sutton is so low that what Sean Payton is trying to do is trying to lump Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton into the same pot, into the same coffee cup. But I mean, it's an iced frappe compared to, hot chocolate. It's two completely different things. And you're stuck with Cortland Sutton. I know on Instagram today, Cortland put out some sort of cryptic message about being stuck, or I'm not exactly sure what
on
it
Instagram.
Means. Yeah,
I'm
something
on it.
About up and stuck, and I may need a little interpretation there. But from what I was digging around, it more or less means you're stuck with us. Here's the situation. There's nothing you can do about it. And I think that's about right. I don't think there is anything you can do with Cortland Sutton. Are you seeing it there, Rach? You see what I'm talking about?
So I posted on his story, and it's a picture of him, and I'm 90. Oh, yeah, and Jerry Jeudy. And Cortland is essentially grabbing his jersey. I'll see if Jake can pull the actual picture, and it says up and it's stuck. So
up and it's stuck.
Saying, we're here together, let's ball this out. That's how I.
Yeah, but that's sweet and all. But to think that Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are the same thing at this point. I compared it in my article. It's like, if you're ordering dessert and you say, well, you have a choice of chocolate cake or sardines, maybe you could legitimately have both for dessert, although the sardines would be weird. But, one is much different than the other. Yeah. Rachel, let's face it, if you're a parent, you have kids, you're going to love all of your kids. But listen, there's a difference between the one that got into Harvard and the one that's going to Arapahoe Community College. You love them both, but there's just a difference between the two. And there's just a difference between Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. The reason why they really should trade Jerry Jeudy, now you have to understand where I'm coming from, because I'm the only human being on earth that believes that they should trade Patrick Surtain for these exact reasons, though, Rachel, that you are so bereft of draft picks because of Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. You don't have any basis to develop starters in the first or second round for the long term. You say, well, why would you get rid of, your best player if you think Jerry Jeudy is so good? And I said, I wouldn't. I would actually get rid of Patrick Surtain for multiple first round picks. But in lieu of getting rid of Surtain, the next most valuable player on your team is Jerry Jeudy. And the problem is, when you've made so many mistakes over the years and you have so little capital to deal with, you've got to have a painful moment. And trading Jerry Jeudy, and here's what's scary, Rachel, you're likely going to have to trade him for a second round pick. You probably can't even get a first rounder, and you still probably have to do it. As of May 1st, they're going to have to offer the 5th-year extension on Jerry Jeudy, which is going to guarantee him over $12 million. That is a bargain, Rachel. That is an absolute bargain. And I respect that Sean Payton is trying to include Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton together. Maybe that makes them feel good as buddies and friends, but it's not even close to the reality of the situation. They would deal Cortland Sutton tomorrow if they got the right offer.
I 100% agree with you. Okay, so say they do. Let's just play the what if game. they trade Jerry Jeudy for a second round pick, or let's just go highballer where they get a first round. What are you drafting? What position are you drafting?
Your offensive or defensive line. You're going to fortify your offensive or defensive line with a player that can be strong for many, many years to come. You have to go in that direction. You possibly could also go with a pass rusher too, because you're really thin in that position as well.
Okay, so you're essentially relying on Tim Patrick, who's coming back from an ACL, Cortland Sutton, who hasn't looked the same since his ACL, KJ Hamler, who's going to probably miss at least a few weeks at the beginning of the season, and Marquez Coleman, correct? Their new
Galloway? Is it Galloway?
Galloway.
I thought it was Galloway.
I
could be wrong.
Callaway. You're correct. That's your wide receiving core, and what grade would you give that?
Oh, it's a below average receiving core for sure. But again, and you would pick up other people in the in free agency. You would, and you may draft receivers later in the draft too. You have 2 third-round picks. Likely, you'd probably go with receivers, one of those third-round picks. Don't forget where Devontae Adams went, Rachel. There's other great receivers out there, and this is known as a very thin receiving group for the draft. So, again, if you had a first-round pick for Jerry Jeudy, or even a second-round pick, pass rusher, D lineman, these type of core guys that you're going to have for a long time on the cheap will be much more instrumental in success than the situation you have right now. And I don't want to get rid of Jerry Jeudy. I told you what I would do, okay? I want to do, it's like playing Stairway to Heaven in Guitar Center. It's like the forbidden song. The forbidden thing to mention is to trade your most valuable asset, which is Patrick Surtain, for depth for the future. I get it. Save all your vitriol and your social media hate for me. I get it. They're not going to do it. Don't waste your time. I'm not paying attention to it. But that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. Because it's the right thing to do, it also applies to Jerry Jeudy. It doesn't apply to Cortland Sutton, Rachel. And I understand what Sean Payton's trying to do, and I admire him for it, trying to say, hey, rah-rah, guys, you're our guys. I mean, this does not come without some serious time, energy, and effort into looking into making these deals at some point. They're just not getting the offers. And, Rachel, here's why. The teams know the Broncos are in a tight spot. They know they have no draft picks in the first or second round. So they know the Broncos would likely move on from those guys for much cheaper than they probably could get if the Broncos were in a better situation. And frankly, why would the Broncos even be taking calls about these guys if they weren't in the situation that they're in? So not only should they trade Jerry Jeudy, Rachel, they must trade Jerry Jeudy at some point before the draft. Sorry. It sucks, and I don't want to see him go.
All right, well, we're going to bring in another opinion on that one as Andrew Mason is live from Arizona at the NFL annual meeting. Excited to sit down. And Mace, how are you this morning?
I'm doing all right. Nice and warm. Don't have to worry about snow down here. It's pretty lovely here in the desert.
I'm so jealous. It looks beautiful. Of course, we have snow falling outside. I'm sad about it. I'm ready for spring, and I'm so jealous of you. But real quick, because I know you're super busy today, kind of break down what you heard from Sean Payton this morning and the biggest takeaway from you.
Well, first of all, we're still learning kind of what he likes to talk about. He doesn't like to talk about injuries, so he even said that specifically. But I'm writing a piece on what he said about Jarrett Stidham and how he sees Jarrett Stidham as somebody who, with development, could become a starter. And he praised what he did in that San Francisco game last year, but I think that's kind of an interesting thing, and it's going to lead to, I think, a lot more discussion about Jarrett Stidham in the next few months, and then what happens if Russell Wilson doesn't end up putting it back together, because now they have somebody that they've seen, and we kind of hear it explicitly from Sean Payton that they like the trend on Jarrett Stidham. He said, hey, we could have gone with guys that we knew was a backup quarterback, but they wanted somebody who was, and he kind of made this motion, the ascending motion, and that's what they see in Jarrett Stidham. And so I know D-Mac, for one, will be very interested in that particular soundbite and the implications thereof.
No, and I'm definitely intrigued too. And we also know that he really doesn't like to talk about Russell Wilson a whole lot. That clip is very interesting, when they talked about the struggles of the offense and how it was hard to watch film. And you can tell Sean Payton's just a little uncomfortable in that
Yeah.
with that question.
Yeah, and I mean, he basically threw 2/3 of the team last year under the bus. He threw the offense under the bus, threw special teams under the bus. Said both were hard to watch. He said specifically something that I've alluded to that his mentor Bill Parcells has mentioned, and that is that special teams is a way to kind of have a quick impact when you're rebuilding and restarting over again. So it's, but basically just, I mean, the work of the offense and Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, the work of special teams and Dwayne Stoops. I mean, beep beep, you could hear the truck just basically backing them up. Said it was hard to watch those things, and even like when he talked about the defense, praised the defense in light of the crap that they were dealing with in the other two phases. Basically, he didn't use the word crap, but he might as well have in terms of what he was saying about that. And so you've got him kind of eviscerating the offense and what it was last year, praising Jarrett Stidham and saying he's somebody that could develop into a starter. I think some of what we've discussed on air about if things go sideways, do they give Jarrett Stidham a look? I mean, I think the plot thickened a little bit this morning, to be honest with you.
When will you hear from George Payton?
We're expecting to hear from him right around the midday break. So let's see, we're an hour behind. I think we'll probably hear from George Payton at around, I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of 12:30, 12:45 Mountain Time, Mountain Time today. So, and that's Mountain Daylight Time, so that's Denver time. Because technically we're on Mountain Time here, but it's Mountain Standard Time. So we'll hear from him. We'll hear from him probably in a couple of hours, and we're expecting to hear from Greg Penner and Damani Leach tomorrow. And certainly there's going to be a lot of questions about the survey and the stadium and all that, because right now, with all respect to the football stuff on the field that's going on, I think it's a lot of the off-field stuff, the business stuff, that there's just as much intrigue and notable stuff going on right now. It's busy times in Broncos country, no doubt.
It is, and I was following your Twitter this morning. Did D'Amico Ryans get any more reporters out there, or did Sean Payton steal the show?
He did. Like Peter King, actually, when he kind of saw the contrast, he went over to D'Amico's table. Eventually, there were a couple of people from the Houston Texans team media that showed up. I think one or two reporters from Houston. But with Sean Payton, I mean, not only was his table crowded, Rachel, but it was crowded early. Like I thought I gave myself enough time by arriving at around 6:55, which is 50 minutes before the press conference was supposed to start. And basically, it turned out I got the last seat that had a pretty good angle, camera-wise, for Sean Payton, and was able to kind of set up, and then everyone from there was kind of either like on a bad angle or just standing up and all that. So yeah, it was pretty wild to see how. And I mean, I looked and I'm like, whoa! I thought I was early, and it turns out there were a bunch of people there before. So it's there's always interest in the Broncos, but clearly Sean Payton, he was kind of the star of the day, and we'll hear from the NFC coaches tomorrow. But I think today belonged to Sean Payton. So you can tell after a while he's had his fill, and this is it's a half hour. It used to be an hour, now it's a half hour. But even that, you could tell with Sean, like he'd had his fill. He was good.
Well, even when the Broncos are bad, they're still relevant. Mace, have so much fun in the warm weather in Arizona, and thanks for taking a few minutes. Enjoy the conversations out there. All right, there he is, Andrew Mason, as we do bring back in DMAC, and we have another guest in James Marilat hanging out with us. Good morning, James. How are you?
I'm good. Although I was shoveling snow this morning, and Mace is out there in beautiful weather. I feel, we can't complain, Rachel. We were out there for the Super Bowl, right? Sure. So now we know kind of how other people felt. But I'm jealous. I'll put it that way. I'm jealous.
I know. I'm with you. So I want to get both of your reactions to kind of what you thought was the biggest takeaway from the NFL annual meeting and Sean Payton speaking. So James, let's start with you. What was your biggest takeaway?
I like the fact that he flat out said, "Hey, does it sound like I'm being critical of the offense and the special teams? I am." Yeah, you know what? Let's just state what the reality is here, right? Like, they've been bad on the offensive side of the ball for a long time. Last year was the worst of the bunch, which is hard to believe. And they've been terrible on special teams for a long time. And last year was the worst of the bunch, which is hard to believe. I think it's sometimes if you don't at least point out the problem, it's impossible to rectify it. So that was great. That was a change of pace. We've gone from a guy who didn't want to make anybody mad to a guy who doesn't care who he makes mad. And that's a good thing.
D-Mac?
I'll just go back to what May said about Jarrett Stidham. That confirms everything we thought. Listen, there is so many cheaper ways they could have gone. I love the fact that they acquired Jarrett Stidham. I think it's not the best strategy, but I like what it says. I don't think Sean Payton is ever going to draft a quarterback high in the first round. I think he thinks highly of himself, rightfully so. And I think he's the king of reclamation projects. But it's a tip of the cap to say, hey, guys, we're not just going to sink this ship with Russell Wilson. That's not going to be okay. It's not going to be okay not to have contact and play your starters in the preseason. That's not okay. Competition will be out there for everybody. You know, if Russell Wilson is having a miserable first quarter like he did in Los Angeles, where he two interceptions and it's 17-0, we're going to go with Stidham. The end. We are not going to put the success and ego of a player above the rest of the team. The whole, social media and operate, in the dark and all that, that, of course, is ridiculous. He'll be out there as much as anybody because his ego is as big as anybody. But it's very clear Sean Payton does not like dealing with local media. He's fine dealing with the bigwigs and all of his buddies. But the local media, we didn't even have a chance to interview the new free agents at all. So it's a lockdown messaging system. It's steeped in a little bit of paranoia, a little bit of anger, but okay. I mean, I'm fine with all of that, basically, because what's the other end of the stick? Losing for 7 straight years? You may as well try this. And whether or not it works with Russell Wilson, it's not just going to be dependent solely on Russell Wilson, which, again, I endorse.
I mean, I definitely can see the point, but really, and D-Mac, I know you've gone back and looked at the tape on Stidham. James, I'm not sure about you, but do you really think that he can lead this team down a better path? I just find that hard.
No, he's better than Brett Rippon, right? He would have given him a better chance against the Jets last year. He would have given him a puncher's chance in the fourth quarter or late in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs after Russ got concussed. But is he a better option than Russell Wilson? Of course not. And I'll believe it when I see it that Russ gets yanked and Stidham goes in. Now, in the Christmas Day debacle, at that point in the season with where this record was and who cares? Sure, but week 4, if Russ starts off a little slow and there's a couple of drops and they're behind 10-0, I don't buy it. I'll believe it when I see it because that is one of those moves. Once you make it, there's no going back. And you better be ready for life on Stidham Island if you're going to go down that path because you're going to be stranded there for a while.
Well, it doesn't work. But, James, it doesn't work like that. How it works is you're down 20-0. You have a 0 quarterback rating and you have a foot injury that you have to go see, a doctor in North Carolina for. That's what happened with Peyton Manning in the middle of the 2015 season. Nobody gets benched for no reason. There's always some physical ailment with any of these high-priced starters. It'll be something like that. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as, you suck and you sit on the bench now and this other guy goes in and there's no going back from it. There's always going back because there's different circumstances surrounding the reasoning of what's happening and when it's happening. Most guys have something going on. And whether it's the physical connecting with the mental or the mental perhaps impacting the physical, sometimes you just need a little bit of a break. Now, hopefully you don't need any kind of break, right? Hopefully you've got 17 straight games. You're competitive in all the games. Nobody's going to yank Russell Wilson if you're down 10 and a couple of things are going wrong. But down 20-0 like Peyton Manning, 17 points in the first quarter against the Rams. These are remarkable circumstances, not just little bumps in the road. So it's more symbolic anyways of a different thought process. Of course, it's Russell Wilson, but we're not just going to go down with the Russell Wilson ship. And most importantly, they have a $55 million decision to make about a year from now. About a year from now, they've got to make that decision. So they're going to be prepared for it. And because who knows if they'll have the right draft pick to get Drake May or Caleb Williams. Likely they won't. But guys, there's always another quarterback coming out. There's always another possibility. It happens year after year after year. You just have to be ready to seize the opportunity if that comes.
I think the fact that they have a reasonable plan B is fine, but it isn't. Let's not act like it's plan A and plan 1A and plan 1B. It's not. It's plan A, Russell Wilson, and plan B. Okay, break glass in case of emergency, Jarrett Stidham, and it's a better option than Brett Rippon, because Brett Rippon, you break the glass and the fire hydrant doesn't have anything in it. That's what you had. So, okay, it's a better option than that. I will say this, though. Going back to, and nobody cares about the media. I get it. But Sean Payton is going to quickly learn that this ain't New Orleans.
Right.
And the Broncos are the state religion, small r, here in Colorado. And if you're shutting people out and you're not getting information and everything has to go through Colin Cowherd and things like that, it's the same mistake the Rockies made after 2007 when it was, we don't have time for anybody local. We're only going to go on, back in the day, it was Jim Rome and whoever the big names were. Okay, that's all great when you're winning. But when you're losing, people are going to pounce pretty quick. So Sean Payton should take some time to learn what he's walking into here.
It's likely to be his biggest mistake that he makes, and he will realize it a year from now, and he won't realize it right away. But look at the tables in the media and who was paying attention and who wasn't today, okay? Look at the Kansas City table with Andy Reid. Look at the Texans table with DeMeco Ryans, and look at the attention that us paltry, pathetic little Denver Muggles pour upon to this team. And we do so because the heart and soul of the fan base is gigantic when it comes to the Broncos and overwhelms most other teams. And yes, we are the mountain time zone. Get used to it. And Arizona does not change their clock. They don't bounce back and forth. They're weird in their own Arizona sort of way. Now, I don't know if they're on the same time as us or not. Maybe they're not. So we're now ahead of them. We're now ahead of them.
I don't know. But it reminds me of when Bill Callahan took the job at Nebraska, right? And he comes in there and he's like, why do I have to go to all the local high schools and do this? And why do we have the Nebraska? If you played high school in Nebraska, you can walk on. Why are we doing all this nonsense? That went over like the proverbial lead balloon. And then as soon as you start losing 65-51 to CU, everybody's all over your case and they're running you out of town. So listen, if you do that stuff and you break from tradition and you kind of thumb your nose at the way things have been done here for decades, there's a reason it's been done the same way here, coach after coach after coach after coach. And if you want to thumb your nose at it, that's fine. You better have success, and you better have success early.
That's right, because we will point out, real quick, we will point out when you're doing exclusive interviews with employees. When you talk to Phil Milani of DenverBroncos.com, you're just talking to a fellow employee. You can see Phil later on in the cafeteria. You both have badges to walk around the facility. I tell you once again, whether fans throw stones at us for whatever reason, we, right here at DenverSports.com, are the most unbiased filter towards a viewpoint on this team. You will not find a wider variety of opinions, inside information, and coverage of your favorite team. You won't find it anywhere. But to do that, we're not afraid to be critical when it's appropriate to be critical. We're not sitting here like that poor talk show host in Syracuse. I don't know if you caught that story. The guy ripped on Boeheim, and he got fired because of it, because the owner just likes Boeheim. The one great thing about this company, and has been for years and years and years, is an unbiased viewpoint of the team. So when things are good, we'll talk about it. When things are bad, we will talk about it. And if anybody thinks like we're out to get the Broncos, just look at how many bad things have been happening compared to good things that have been happening. And then fairly look at our coverage of the Nuggets and the Avalanche and even the Rockies, frankly. And you tell me what's fair and not fair. So if Sean Payton just wants to ignore all of that, do so at your own peril, dude. Like James said, you better win. Right now, we're giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and we know he listens. That's made it very clear. We know they're all listening. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter It will see, but you better win, because otherwise Broncos country too. Not just us muggles here. Broncos country will let you hear it as well.
And
Real
let me
quick,
tell you, I am proud that we call out billionaires and that we're not afraid to question people that have a lot of money. A lot of people are terrified about saying critical things about the wealthy people and the sports owners. I think nothing represents the voice of the fan questioning those with the most money. So when they put out the survey like they did, and I really did enjoy your article at denversports.com, James, about the stadium, because you're basically saying don't listen to the fans or you'll be sitting with them. More or less, that's what you said. They made a tremendous mistake kowtowing to the fails, building the new stadium right next to Mile High Stadium. In fact, I mean, they were so beholden to the fans, they insist on Jimmy jamming the name Mile High into the stadium, which of course is, stupid and ridiculous. If you wanted to build a Mile High district, you would have figured it out over the past 20 years. Nobody's been able to do it because it's not a good area. It just isn't. Lodo was perfect. It was a bunch of old abandoned warehouses and parking lots that Pat Bolin knew about. He made sure he tipped that off to the right people back in the day. That's another fun story. But it's just different. You're just penned in by highways and Federal Boulevard and train tracks and all sorts of stuff. It's just a lousy place for a stadium that it's not just a stadium, it's a stadium district. What I loved about the survey, there's no going back now, baby. Once the Walter Penner Group puts that out there, after seeing the comparisons of other facilities, could you honestly check the box like, hey, I like it just the way it is? I mean, are you nuts? So no matter what the fans say, it'll be an overwhelming opinion to do something different.
James, go ahead, because I did like your article as well, so I want to give you a little bit of time to speak on it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's not a very popular sounding opinion to say, well, you shouldn't listen to the fans. But at the end of the day, the fans tend to be nostalgic. They tend to live in the past. They don't want change. Human beings don't want change. So if you ask them, do you want anything different? Like, no. Like, I didn't want to leave from Old Mile High. I loved the seat I had in section 326, row 8, seat 1. And I could look on the aisle, and there was a hole in the steps, and I could look down like 100 feet. I didn't care. That was the hole I threw my trash in. I loved it. I didn't want to move. So I wasn't the right guy to ask back in 1998, what do you want in a new stadium? Because you don't want change. The owner has to be, and the business people need to be looking forward and saying, what's the thing we need in 2030, 2040? How do we build something that is not just of use 10 times a year and then maybe for a Taylor Swift and a Kenny Chesney concert? You need to have something that is, 100 days a year. You got something going on there between the stadium, the practice facility. I mean, look at the Star down in Frisco, the practice facility for the Cowboys. They have youth sporting events down there. There's so many things you can do that are beyond what they have at Dove Valley and what they have down in Power Field. Asking the fans, it's nice. Thanks for the gesture. But I don't want the chef coming out and asking me, what do you think I should do? How much on each side of the steak? I don't know. You do it.
Right. Just for you to know, in Vegas, you don't need to build a town because you have the Las Vegas Strip, the most famous, nice spot in the world. But where did they put the arenas? T-Mobile is right outside of New York, New York. It is steps from there. Allegiant Stadium is just across the bridge from a couple of different casinos that sort of neighbor that. So you don't need the whole town atmosphere. You have the Las Vegas Strip. But if you want to see, and listen, I'm all for doing it downtown if you can figure it out. I'm all for uplifting cities, and I like things in cities. But if you just can't do it anymore because of space, do something a little bit more interesting and creative. And I think a lot of fans just are against it because they haven't seen what the other options actually are. And it's a bummer that they made this mistake all these years ago. But don't forget, Pat Bolin was broke. Pat Bolin was broke when they relatively broke when they built the field. And I think, James, you pointed out that it was built for $400 million or $450, and the stadium in Houston or some other place was built for $350 or something like that. I mean, less than. So don't tell me you couldn't have built a roof or a retractable stadium, but it doesn't change the fact that you can't do anything around the stadium. Mm-hmm. And I was very encouraged to see the survey, and I understand what James is saying. I get that. But at the end of the day, one way or the other, you're going to have an overwhelming response of we want something better. Okay? And I understand what you're saying, James. Like, you don't just go with the fans, but the fans aren't going to check the keep things the same box. They just aren't. They're ultimately they're not
That's why we have the
I'll give you
dump
this.
we have now.
Hey,
Nobody
hey,
wanted change. Nobody
I'll
wanted
give you
change.
this.
I got to have Bucky in the south end up on top of the scoreboard. Otherwise, I just won't go to the game.
I'll give you this. After doing this survey, okay, and what have I said? I have said for more than a year now, I'm not taking the Walton Penner ownership group seriously until they design and start working on a new stadium, because I think it's just a toy, not a real deal. This is different. If they do this, my opinion will completely change about the Walton Penner ownership group. I will give them so much credit. I will heap nothing but praise on them once they get the ball rolling and shovels go in the ground and they start construction on a new facility. Once we know that for sure, and I'm getting ready to do it because I think it's going in that direction. But I'll tell you this, if you do all of this survey stuff and you decide, it's fine, we're going to build a restaurant in the parking lot or something like that, I mean, I'll be apoplectic. And I'll be convinced that this was really simply a toy. And this was a midlife crisis for Greg Penner and his wife. And it was, a nice gift for Robson Walton on the way out the door rather than something serious. If they do nothing or they do very little around the existing stadium.
All right, hold on 1 second. I did ask on our YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, change or no change. Let us know so that I can decide for one of these two. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mistake what they did the first time around, right? And they have a chance to do something different, and you have to come out with plans that there are at least a big percentage of people that are going, well, that'll never work, because that's what they said when Jerry Jones came out with the plans for AT&T Stadium. I'm like, that is too grandiose. SoFi, where they're going to build all the NFL Network stuff there, and it's a whole town around it essentially of the business parks and all the rest of this stuff. Like, we need to see a plan that either makes us go, holy cow, I never thought of that, or makes us go, oh my gosh, there's no way that's going to work. That's too grandiose. That's the kind of plan I'm looking for. Because if it doesn't make you nervous, why bother doing it?
Do you guys watch the TV show Succession?
No.
No, I know last night was the debut.
Succession is an HBO show about a multi-billionaire family in basically like Comcast. Like they own Comcast. Okay. And they're thinking about growing their wealth. And there's a fight between the dad and 3 of the 4 siblings, and they're fighting about a purchase. And I just had to laugh. So last night in this made-up world of multi-billionaires, they were fighting between each other for another media company, and the bidding went from $8 billion to $10 billion. And eventually in the story, they settled for $10 billion. And I just laughed at that and like, yeah, that's actually the way it goes. Like that actually is big business. And I was thinking $10 billion is well within the Walton Penner ownership group sort of growth and wealth. They could actually do this. Guys, they bought the Broncos for $4.65 billion. They could easily, in their world, okay? It's their world, not our world, their world. They could easily fork over another $5 billion to make some sort of development happen. It's not crazy. And if you want a fair comparison, I know it's a TV show, but look at other corporate acquisitions over time. What did Elon Musk just value Twitter at? $300 billion? Something like that? I mean, there's mind-boggling amounts of money that live in that world, not our world. So to think about building a new complex for $5 to $8 billion, guys, it's not only is it not crazy, it's just part of doing business. It's just something that's hard for us as regular people to wrap our minds around.
If they build something where they can't host the Super Bowl, can't host the Final Four, can't host WrestleMania, whatever, those may not be your cup of tea. But if you don't build something to where you can attract those kind of events, then what's the point? You're just wasting everyone's time.
Agreed. It's a toy, not a serious profession.
We can all agree on that. We can also all agree that tonight's game between the 76ers and Nuggets is going to be a fun one as long as Embiid plays. Jake swears to me he's going to play. D-Mac and I are a little hesitant. But tonight's game is really massive for the MVP race, James.
It is. To me, it wouldn't surprise me if Embiid doesn't play. He's got nothing to gain, everything to lose. If he gets outplayed and the Nuggets beat him and Jokic has a big night, all of a sudden the race gets tightened. If he sits it out, everybody's just going to remember when they faced off in Philly, and that was a national TV game on a Sunday afternoon. This is 9:30 East Coast time start on NBA TV. Nobody's going to even know that he missed it. So I think, if he's really worried about the MVP race, it's like if you're 10 points up in the presidential race, why have another debate? Why go out there and give yourself a chance to say something dumb? Just sit on the sidelines and let your lead speak for itself. So I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't play. I know people are going to be upset, but listen, what did Jokic do when they went to Milwaukee and played the Bucks this year?
Well,
sat behind the bench in a suit.
Yeah, he sat because it was on a back-to-back night, and that was part of the load management. I mean, what did he do on Saturday against Giannis?
Played great.
What happened?
Played great. But you can't accuse one guy of ducking and not your guy of ducking. You can't. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. We got to apply the same standard.
It's totally different. If the Sixers had played last night, perhaps it could be somewhat similar. They played 2 nights ago, okay? They got spanked, by the way. They lost to the Spurs, and defensively, the Sixers are a disaster. The best defensive team in the NBA is the Bucks, and the Nuggets had no problems putting up plus 120 points on them at home.
Giannis plays, even though he played the night before. Giannis played the night before, overtime in Utah, and showed up to play against Jokic. But Jokic couldn't do that against Giannis after playing in New Orleans. I mean, I'm just saying, we got a double standard here. Yeah, that's an easy road trip. Fly to New Orleans and go up to Milwaukee the next day. Under 24 hours, too. One of those weird, is it 24 hours? That was under 24 hours. So total time from arena to hotel in another city, from Salt Lake to Denver versus New Orleans to Milwaukee. I'll bet it's not 20 minutes different. James, you're slightly off your rocker, but I love you. It's so good to be back on this play. There's a big difference between playing back-to-back nights at a world-class level and having time off in between. That being said, I hope Embiid does play. I'll be disappointed if he doesn't. There certainly will be an 8-year-old girl from Yuma with a sign that has a lot of sparkles on it saying, "This is my first and only NBA game I could ever go to, and I came all this way just to see Joel Embiid." So I hope that person is front and center with tears in her eyes when Embiid is in a tracksuit, not a warm-up suit. So you're sympathetic for guys with $100 million contracts who can't play back-to-back nights, but not 8-year-old girls. Got it. Okay. Check.
Jake, I was waiting to see how long it was going to take you. I had a little bit of a stopwatch of how long it was going to take.
So, James, you said no one's going to notice. ESPN has 2 reporters out here for this game, and they had him out here 2 nights ago. Tim Bontemps, who's the East Coast reporter, Ohm, who's the West Coast reporter. People are going to notice if he doesn't play this game. The Athletic and The Ringer have released big pieces on Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic's MVP fight tonight. There are going to be a lot of people that notice this one. To your point.
Okay, hang on. We'll find out if he doesn't play. Let's see if he's getting ripped tomorrow on First Take and Get Up and all the rest of that for not playing. If he does, then they notice. If they just move on to another story, they didn't notice.
I would be absolutely stunned if he does not play this game. Giannis Antetokounmpo the other day played a West Coast road back-to-back. That game against the Nuggets right after the Jazz. He only played 25 minutes in that Jazz game because they took care of business, but hidden while we were all watching the Bucks was Joel Embiid playing a West Coast road back-to-back as well. No one does that, and both of those guys just did that because of where we are in the season, because every single game matters. So the situation is different than it was in January, but because of that, because of what Joel Embiid just did, because the Sixers just rested James Harden for both of those games, I'd be absolutely stunned if Joel Embiid does not play tonight, particularly because of what he told Shams in The Athletic today with all these comments about not stat padding against the Bulls and yada, yada, yada. These guys are going out for an all-out war. I actually talked to some people behind the scenes, not necessarily Nuggets people, but NBA people, who think that, they're a little low-key concerned with what this could turn into bloodbath-wise between these two in this game. So this is going to be like a real heavyweight fight, guys.
I will say this. Right? And that'll be awesome. That'll be fun. You know what the more important storyline is? The Nuggets can go 2 games up on the Sixers with the win tonight. Not outside the realm of possibilities. They play Philly in the NBA Finals. Tonight is huge. You're dead even tied if Philly comes in here and wins, and they've won both games head-to-head. So standings-wise, I think it's actually more important than the MVP race. That's fun and all, But if you're trying to win a championship, getting a W tonight for the Nuggets is big.
Hey, by the way, when does James give Michael Malone a little credit for not doing zero load management on the recent road trip?
Yeah, he finally listened to me. I should praise him for finally doing what I've been saying to do for 5 months.
Just trying to make sure that you're giving credit where credit is James due.
My goodness. Okay, good job, Mike. You listened.
All right, Jake, real quick before you leave, everybody, we want to give who you're taking for tonight. Jake, you lead off.
Yeah, James actually just made a great point. I focused this on my column about the Bucks Saturday night. It was really big for the Nuggets to get that win because of the standings. Even if they don't get first place overall record in the NBA, there's a great chance they could run into second, third, or fourth in the East if they do indeed make it to the finals. So this game has a low-key standings impact down the line. With that said, if James Harden plays tonight, he is a nightmare for the Nuggets to guard. And the Nuggets have lost 6 games at home this year. This is the first time this season I've said I don't feel great about the Nuggets going into a home game.
But
I'm not saying they're losing. I'm not saying they're losing. But I could see the Nuggets losing this one.
Hasn't Harden missed 4 games in a row, Jake?
Yeah, so he could play. But if James Harden's not playing, the Nuggets are winning this easy. No problem.
Okay.
D-Mac?
I'll take the Nuggets. I mean, they did what they needed to do against the Bucks. Malone has he's told you who his second unit is, okay? And we know who it is now, and that does include Jamal Murray. So Murray is the one that swings to that second unit, and it's too late in the season to change it. They've got 8 games left. You need those 8 games. This is tough news for some guys. Tough news for Vlatko Čančar, who's really played well this whole season. I mean, pretty tough news for Thomas Bryant and Reggie Jackson, who came here. Those turned out to be, not great acquisitions. No big deal for DeAndre Jordan. And listen, look at Jeff Green just putting Giannis on a poster. And hey, Zeke Naji, how about him, right? So I think you got it. And Christian Brown, he was out, then he was in for a long time, then he was out, but he's back in, and you don't have anything to fear. He's not going anywhere. He got a standing ovation after scoring 0 points in 15 minutes just because of his defense. He's quickly a crowd favorite. This team is really getting its rhythm together, and never mind the fact that Michael Porter Jr. may set unbelievable records in NBA three-point shooting. Never mind just Nuggets three-point shooting, but NBA three-point shooting, and certainly all-time Nuggets three-point in-season shooting. The only weird guy in this mix, guys, is Jamal Murray, man. I mean, what Jamal Murray are you going to get? And when Michael Porter Jr. is a better option than Jamal Murray, is Michael Malone going to make sure that happens? And right now, boy, oh boy, does he defer to Jamal Murray. And when Jamal's good, that's fine. But Michael Porter Jr. has been a much more consistent player than Jamal Murray recently.
James, hold on one second. D-Mac, did you miss doing your job last week?
No, I didn't miss it, but I just love it, so there's a difference between missing it and loving it. I have the unspoken internet package to watch Avalanche and Nuggets games, and we as a family took advantage of that, both on our phone and our mobile units at our home in Northern California. It's incredible how the internet works, guys. It's really amazing how this internet thing actually works. Maybe it's a model for the future. We'll see. But no, I don't miss it, but I do love it. There's a difference.
You just have some long-winded answers today, so I was wondering if you knew your questions.
I thought they were very informative, thorough. I thought they were real good. I thought that was a perfect answer, D-Mac. Look, the Nuggets.
We love listening to you, D-Mac. I'm just saying. I can tell you missed it a little bit. Go ahead, James.
They're a tight-knit group. They know what's on the line tonight for their big fella. I think the Nuggets come out and play great tonight. I was most impressed. The margin of victory against the Bucks, I think it got away from Milwaukee late because they were a tired team having played the night before. But I like the way the Nuggets – Milwaukee's physical, and they didn't back down. They just went in there and went toe-to-toe with them. That showed me a little something. Hey, if it's a bloodbath tonight, great. I think the Nuggets will show up. They proved to me on Saturday night that they could play that kind of game. I think the Nuggets win tonight, and I think they win pretty easily.
And on the physicality leading to the Nuggets defense, because someone pointed this out in the comments, I didn't use this in my story, and I know D-Mac was watching, but maybe wasn't as tuned in. D-Mac, fun stat for you from that game. Payton Watson had more second-half points than Giannis Antetokounmpo on Saturday night in Denver because the Nuggets defense was so good. So he's
been scoring 30 per game in the G League, so why not?
Bring him up. All right, Jake, appreciate you hopping in. Real quick, we have to talk about in the headlines because Lamar Jackson is also the other big news about how he has requested a trade from the Ravens. So how hot is the water for the Ravens on if they decide to move on from Lamar Jackson, James?
I think at this point you have to, and it's, hey, what can you get for him, right? And you look at what Seattle got for Russell Wilson, what other teams have got for big name quarterbacks. You're thinking, how do we maximize his value? It's a little bit of a different situation because he's in the franchise tag, kind of window. So yeah, the pressure is on them to make sure they get something for him and get the most they can for him. But I have a hard time seeing Lamar Jackson being out there in a Ravens uniform next year or certainly beyond.
He will certainly be in a Ravens uniform. The price tag is way too high. They've already put the restricted tender, whatever it is, meaning you'd have to match his salary plus 2 first-rounders to get a hold of him. He'll be with the Ravens. Jim Harbaugh had a funny comment, or John Harbaugh rather, about how Lamar's doing a good job negotiating for himself, which is an interesting thing to say because most people have agents. He doesn't. He'll be back with the Ravens. The price tag is too high, and the money is too much you tell me the 2 or 3 other teams that would be interested in giving up 2 first-rounders for Lamar right now. I mean, who are they? Who's got that kind of cap room and wants to give away that kind of value?
That's a drop in the bucket compared to what the Broncos gave up for Russell Wilson. Lamar Jackson's, 28?
Don't try to have me justify George Payton keeping his job, James, because I'm not gonna. But I'm asking you now, who in the world would actually be in the market for Lamar Jackson that would pay that steep of a price?
I mean, there are certainly quarterback-starved teams. Like, Houston jumps to mind, but they're sitting in a spot where they could draft one. Mm-hmm. Carolina jumps to mind. They're sitting in a spot where maybe they could draft one.
Not maybe.
But, look, Aaron Rodgers hasn't gone to the Jets yet, has he?
No.
At some point, they got to make a move.
That happened last week. What's going on with that?
At some point, they got to make a move because they're all in, and they could be sitting there, the music stops, and they don't have a quarterback. So, I mean, we could go through the teams, and there's probably a handful that would look at it and say, hey, we're all of a sudden a contender with Lamar Jackson. But it's got to be, I guess, with the franchise tag, it doesn't have to be a fit of they're willing to send him, within the division or something like that. But there's teams that would jump at it. Atlanta would jump at it.
Nah. Won't happen. He'll be back with the Birds.
All right. The comments. There are some great answers here, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this one. Clint says, call the Bears. Justin Fields is the same kind of QB.
Yeah, the Bears have already made their decision. They've spent a ton of money in free agency. They got better instantly in the offseason. They're rolling with Justin Fields. All the Justin Fields hate is so preposterous. Yeah, well, let's see what happens. I'm buying my Justin Fields football jersey, soon.
I'm a Justin Fields fan too, but if I'm the Bears, I have a better chance of winning in the next 3 years with Lamar Jackson.
100%.
That move makes sense for both teams. It honestly does. The Ravens know how to develop Justin Fields, and the Bears are better instantly with Lamar Jackson.
I'm with you. Okay. Clint also says Green Bay, they'll probably get a first from the Jets. Are they all in on Jordan Love or not?
Yeah, they're all in on Jordan Love. They made a bad decision 4 years ago, and they're sticking with it. We'll see where it goes. They'll have to figure out his contract in the future, too. It was a dumb thing to do then, and they're stuck with it, and they're going to ride it for at least 1 year.
Okay, and then, of course, lots of people are saying to the Jets, so Aaron Rodgers can't get their way. Edward says the Broncos give up all of our wide receivers and Russell Wilson for Lamar Jackson in a trade. I think
the Ravens would never do it because it's a bad deal for them.
It is. That's tough to take on Russell Wilson's contract.
How many weeks in a row are we going to have to talk about Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy being on the block? Like, when we get to week 1 and they're in the lineup, do we stop talking about it? Is it the trade deadline?
Deadline. No, It'll be, that's a good question. There'll be 2 moments. You're right. There'll be 2 moments. The draft, which is coming up, that'll be one.
Okay.
And then the trade deadline that saw him get rid of Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, and, if you're sitting there at, 4 and 5 or whatever the trade deadline happens to be, and you're going nowhere, you would have extended Jerry Jeudy to a 5th-year option, and there'll be a team that needs the best player on the Broncos to try to win a Super Bowl. He'll have value out there, just like the Jets or the Rams needed Von Miller, and they won a Super Bowl, and the Dolphins needed Bradley Chubb, and they went to the playoffs. And so there's two moments, and there's only one player that's worth tradable conversation, and that's Jerry Jeudy. The end. It's got nothing to do with Cortland Sutton. Nothing.
And I think it depends, too, on how well Jerry Jeudy does at the beginning of the season.
He's going to do great. He's the best player on the team. He's the most dynamic. But at the beginning
of the season, he did not do well, D-Mac. And if he doesn't do well, then there's no value for either one of them.
Again, I can't wait for you to read my piece at denversports.com later on, where I detail the ridiculousness of trying to evaluate somebody's abilities now based on the past compared to the immediate present, okay?
Whoa. Excuse me, Mr. Wilson on the phone. I've seen you absolutely roast Russell Wilson for his play last year.
Yeah, because that's the present. I'm not grading Russell Wilson on a career curve. I don't say, well, he's a Hall of Famer, and so he automatically is going to be great. I'm evaluating what I'm seeing right now. So you tell me, in the last 6 weeks of the season, what did you see out of Russell Wilson? Because I can certainly tell you in the last 6 weeks of the season what I saw out of Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I can tell you. He had the comeback here against the Chiefs before he got dinged and had to leave the game. That was as good a comeback as we've seen from a Broncos quarterback in a long time. The really good performance in Kansas City, second to last week. The really good performance against the Chargers in the last game of the year, where he had one of the best throws in the NFL last year, roll and lift, and hitting Jerry Jeudy.
Oh,
yeah, I'm not anti-Jeudy. I just apply the same. I apply the same rules to everybody. Russell Wilson played much better once Nathaniel Hackett was out of the picture. So did Jerry Jeudy. I mean, I don't think they should trade. I don't think they should even consider trading Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton, though, if he plays better in the first half of the season, if he plays well,
sure,
you're only trading for a half a season of a bad contract, because his dead money after next year is nothing. You can just part ways with him. So essentially, somebody could rent Cortland Sutton. It'd be an expensive rental, about $1 million a game, but you could see that happen at the deadline next year.
Sure. Listen, if my kid got an A+ in English 101 at Arapahoe Community College, I would tell him, listen, it looks good for you to get into CSU next year. I would be encouraged about it as well. That's the path of Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy is getting like his doctorate degree at MIT compared to what Cortland Sutton's doing right now. I mean, it is ridiculous.
Agreed.
So, listen, we get into the same conversation because we talk about what window the Broncos are in. Is it a championship window, or are we in a developmental window? And I love how Sean Payton is sticking his chest out, telling everybody, like, we're not trading our guys. I don't know where these calls are coming from. Maybe it's because you're putting out like the bat light, like a big, huge light above the Broncos facility, like, help! We need receivers. Maybe that's why the phone's actually ringing. Oh, I'm so surprised the phone's ringing. Girl,
wait.
Our two guys.
Wait. We saw last year. I mean, it's a banged up group, right? Tim Patrick's coming back from an injury. Cortland Sutton isn't right. KJ Hamler's hurt again. And we saw last year when those guys weren't available, when it was Kendall Hinton and Brandon Johnson and Freddie Swain, it was like, oh my gosh, they can't do anything in the passing game. So to bring in some reinforcements makes sense. They need to have 7 or 8 legitimate receivers at the start of camp to figure out who's your 4 guys. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
All right, we will see. James Marilla, as always, an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for hanging with us for the last couple of minutes. D-Mac, we got to talk about the Colorado Avalanche tonight, though, because they are taking on the Ducks. Who you got in this game?
Well, I'll take the Avs, and it could be a really entertaining game because the Ducks don't play any defense and they have terrible goaltending. But they have some very dynamic goal scorers. So they are a totally different team than Arizona. And Jared Bednar spoke about that after the game. Arizona was a pain in the butt this year. For their 4 games, they were all pretty tight. 2 of them went to overtime. 1 went to a shootout where it was 7 guys until Val got a goal in. I mean, the Coyotes have just been this, like, oh my God, it's like an irritating sunburn on spring break. It's just like, I didn't even know it was sunny out. Where's the Noxema? It's like it doesn't stop you from moving forward. It's just like a rash that you get that you just gotta. It's just there. That's the Coyotes.
Just annoying.
They're
like
so annoying. And I want to thank the Coyotes for getting the Avs battle tested for the playoffs. It's actually good that the Avs sort of went through it. You just cannot take off a third period and stand around defensively like they did and get away with it. You've got to play the full 60 minutes like Georgiev said after the game. He's right about that. And Mikko Rantanen spoke about it as well. Anaheim, Rachel, I mean, listen, if the Avs are just tired on a back-to-back, maybe they lose something like 6-4, something like that. But I would assume the Avs will come out and play hard. It's probably like some sort of 5-3 game, something along those lines, maybe 6-3. Mikko Rantanen, this could be a low-key awesome game for Mikko as he has 48 goals, and it is not crazy to think about a bad defensive team with poor goaltending that Mikko Rantanen could get 2 goals tonight to get 50. That would be awesome. The record is 54 by Joe Sakic more than 20 years ago. So he's got 48. So to get 50 would be a big deal. To get 55 would set a new club record. 8 games to go.
Crazy. Yeah. And
I'm sorry. 11. How many games are left? Is it 11?
No, 10? I think it's 8.
No. I think the Nuggets have 8. I think the Avs have a couple more. Anyways, another big game in tonight because they've got a game in hand in Minnesota. If they actually win tonight, Rachel, they will be in first place in the Central. And that is a long way from where they were more than a month ago. So they've been on fire. They've been playing great. They've been figuring out ways to win. And I'm really rooting for Mikko to get 50 plus.
All right. They got 10 games left.
10 games left. So can you score? Can Mikko Rantanen, Rachel? How about this for you? Can Mikko Rantanen score 7 goals in 10 games to set a new Avalanche record for goals in a season?
I'm looking at their schedule. They got the Ducks, the Wild, the Stars twice.
Tough. 2 tough games.
Just kidding. I lied to you. The Ducks twice, the Stars twice, the Sharks twice.
Mm-hmm.
Oilers, Jets, and Predators, and then the Wild in there I mentioned.
Well, with the Ducks twice, and did you say the Sharks twice?
Sharks twice, back to back.
Whoa.
So April 4th and April 6th, so Tuesday and a Thursday, they play the Sharks.
Well, the Sharks are abysmal. And the Ducks aren't much better. Wow, you got 4 games against 2 pathetic teams.
Really bad defensive teams, yeah.
This is not crazy. Yeah, this isn't crazy for Mikko, man. I mean, he could do it. I'm rooting for him. He's got to get to 50 quick. He can't fool around and mess around with the 50. Get to 50 quick. And I don't know if you caught it, Rachel, but Mikko had an empty net chance the other game. And it hit off the referee's skate blade.
I know.
Are you kidding me? I mean, that was going in. That was just an easy one. So, the hockey gods don't want to make it easy for Mikko. But the Avalanche in general, Rachel, are in really good shape overall. It's great to have Eric Johnson back.
Yep.
Gabe is skating more on a regular basis. You're seeing a little bit better contribution from Darren Helm. Terry Lehkonen, that sucks, but they haven't really missed a beat without him. So I'm very, very cautiously optimistic, and they are in a much better place than a month ago to defend the Cup. They've got to get through this little lag. It's a little bit of a lag, 10 games. It's just like, again, it's just kind of annoying. It's close to the finish, but there's still work to do. And once you can sniff the finish line, I think they'll be okay. So let's put it on the Ducks tonight. But again, not easy. I know James, no excuse. He just wants robots out there. But it is a back-to-back day, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm encouraged. I would pick the Avs to win 6-3. How about that? 6-3 over the Ducks.
I just saw a text message that came through that had me questioning things, but I think that I am just I don't know. Just ignore
What's
me.
up?
No.
What?
Okay, we're ignoring. Jake told me to ignore. I'm missing something as a different part of the conversation, so we're gonna ignore it. But are you taking Mikko to get 2 goals tonight? Over or under 2?
I will say yes. Mikko gets 2 goals tonight. The Ducks stink defensively and goaltending. He's so close. Maybe there's an empty netter in there somewhere along the line. I will take Mikko with 2 goals. Yes.
Okay, sounds good. I will also join you and Mikko gets number 50 tonight.
Okay.
Against the Ducks. I'm going to take it. I'm going to ride with you. I wish it would be at Ball Arena because that would obviously be exciting.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, maybe he can get 56. Is 56 the record, or does he need to get 57 to break it?
55 would be the record. 55.
So 56 actually breaks it.
Yeah, CSU math. 7 plus 48 is 55. Hashtag asunder. Hashtag asunder.
Hashtag, we're also starting hashtag Nico Watch to see if he can actually break it. So let us know on Twitter as you continue to count up the amount of goals. Hopefully you can do better math than I can. And we're going to do hashtag Nico Watch on Twitter. As always, thank you guys so much. We had a long show today, but thanks for hanging out with us for the last hour and 5 minutes. DMAC, I'm happy to have you back. And we'll hear him on the radio too, 2 to 6 on The Drive. And then the three of us, me, Jake, and DMAC, will all be at the Nuggets game tonight and hopefully watch maybe a bloodbath. Obviously, we don't want to see anybody get hurt, but we want an intense game, and hopefully we get that tomorrow morning. We'll talk and break it all down.
Popcorn night?
If it's intense, maybe.
Okay.
You got to follow on Twitter, everybody. See if we get some popcorn. But we'll be back talking about the game tomorrow night, 10:30 a.m. We'll see you guys then. Have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.